The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Good evening and welcome to my State of Mind. I am Dan Yorke, and this original broadcast is on a Tuesday evening after a newsworthy event occurred in the midday. We are struggling to keep our small businesses in shape here in America and in the state, but it seems there's quite a difference of philosophy and policy between the governor and lieutenant governor on how to do that in terms of how to use the federal monies, the stimulus money, the $1.25 billion worth of money that came to Rhode Island to battle COVID-19.
I would just say
Rhode Island's lieutenant governor and elected officials joined together with small business owners in an effort to save what they say makes Rhode Island so special.
And this is the lifeblood. This is the lifeblood of the community.
According to the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition, small businesses make up over 98% of business within the state. As many struggle with financial burdens from recent forced closures from the pandemic, Chris Parisi, the leader of the coalition, says financial assistance must be made available sooner rather than later.
We can't wait. Each day that the governor holds on to these funds, more small businesses are dying.
Business owners echo the harsh reality of doing business after months without revenue and increased costs of doing business upon reopening.
The restrictions in place made it impossible to generate enough revenue, and more businesses closed. And in the coming months, without help, many others will shut their doors for good as well.
Small business closures would carry with them a ripple effect. Representative John Lombardi says closures would lead to more people on unemployment, which would then lead to housing issues, something he's already seeing today.
420 new cases of potential evictions, 260 already in the pipeline.
And so with no further ado, we bring on the lieutenant governor and one of his key guys who really stepped up to the plate in a really benevolent business way early on in the I don't know how you refer to it, the COVID season, in March when everything was kind of hitting the fan. Chris Parisi is the president and founder of Trailblaze Marketing here in Rhode Island. Of course, no stranger at the bottom of the screen, Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee. I welcome you both to the program. Lieutenant Governor, give me a quick overview about what's happening.
And the purpose, Dan, is this. A few weeks back, we made it very known that we believe that the state is in a position to provide, through its COVID-19 federal grants to our small businesses. It's an allowable use. Chris is going to talk more about that, but there's $1.25 billion that the state of Rhode Island has received. In the guidelines, which I think is very important to say, is that the guidelines actually recommend that states use those funds to grant to small businesses who have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19. No response from the governor on that. She's basically saying that she's holding off because those dollars she wants to use potentially to plug a budget hole. The guidelines are specific, Dan. You are not allowed to use those federal dollars to shore up a budget line item that pre-existed the COVID. And then the last thing I want to say is states throughout the country are doing this, putting up millions of dollars to help the small businesses. So this is not a fairy tale.
Okay, I get that, and we'll talk more about the federal mines and the politics. I want to talk to Chris a little bit. Chris, you have done some really incredible work here. You were on the lieutenant governor's calls early on with the small businesses, and that has grown into what label? You're a marketing guy. What label would you offer? It's a society of businesses. It's a community of businesses. Tell me what it is.
Coalition.
Right.
So we call it a Rhode Island Small Business Coalition because obviously the Lieutenant Governor has led the charge in the beginning, but now all of us small businesses need to come together to really demand, what we need. And it's more powerful when we come together to form our own advocacy group, and we're calling it the Rhode Island Small Business Coalition.
Talk to me about what your experience has been, A, as a small businessman yourself, B, what did it feel like in March, and what does it feel like now from your perspective? And then I want to talk to you a little bit about what you've been able to do to help some businesses, survive and perhaps even thrive during this time.
Yeah, it's very scary as a small business owner during this pandemic. Obviously, it's a health crisis, but it's also an economic crisis as well. So for our business in particular, we're a marketing agency, a local one, a small business. And, you know, we always fear that marketing is one of the things that businesses will cut, you know, when they fear expenses and revenue will be down. But fortunately, we have a strong group of clients, and we were able to survive and really didn't lose any contracts. So once that happened and I ensured that our team was okay and that our clients are doing well, I immediately pivoted to say, all right, if I'm okay, I know many others aren't. So how can I help out our small business community? And that's when I reached out to Lieutenant Governor. He gave me a phone call, and the rest has been history there since March as we built this coalition and really tried to help the Rhode Island small businesses here in Rhode Island.
Dan, it was a very much a triage situation early on, was it not?
Yeah, Chris joined in with Justin, who's with Oceanside Graphics, and then Lori Guterri as well, who's very been active. But yeah, so I mean, they've started this rismallbusiness.org site where businesses are registered. I think that we're approaching 1,500 or more businesses there. And then when we didn't, receive any real positive feeling from the governor's office that the governor was going to use those COVID-19 federal dollars that are allowable use for small businesses, Chris and the core group came up with the idea that we do a petition. And that petition is what is front and center right now. People can go to rismallbusiness.org/petition, sign that petition. Business owners can, customers of those businesses, family members, employees, and let the governor know. This is a petition that's directed at the governor to use those COVID-19 federal dollars to help our small businesses with grants.
All right, when we come back in our next segment, we'll talk to our guests about what the practical uses of this money will be. You know, what exactly is it? I mean, there's a duh factor in all of this, right? Which is, cash flow and keeping fingers in the dike. I get that, but for the most part, we ought to talk about what the specific kinds of needs for that resource is when we come back with Chris Parisi of Trailblaze Marketing, of course, our Lieutenant Governor. Stay with us on Dan Yorke State of Mind. Back to My State of Mind. This broadcast is being seen originally on a Tuesday evening, and earlier today scheduled was a press conference announcing a petition for a coalition of businesses here, signed by a coalition of businesses here in Rhode Island, that are asking the governor to rethink her approach to the big picture, and that is the funding that came from the stimulus from the federal government, which still has in hold, in escrow almost, in Rhode Island, hundreds of millions of dollars. Lieutenant Governor and I will talk about the politics and the practicality of this in our next segment. But Chris, this petition signature drive, what do you project the number of businesses to be to jump onto this?
Yeah, we already have thousands of small businesses in our coalitions, thousands that have already signed this petition, because it's a really common sense initiative that affects all Rhode Islanders. The small businesses are the backbone of our community, of our economy, and each day that the governor holds on to these funds, more small businesses are dying. And that's why we came together and formed this petition, because enough is enough. We need help, and we need help now. $1.25 billion that the feds gave our state through the CARES Act can be allocated towards small businesses. This is not a pie in the sky idea. Other states are already doing it. New Hampshire gave $400 million, Alaska, Mississippi. Many other states care about their small businesses and acted on it and allocated up hundreds of millions of dollars in the forms of grants, as that's what's allowed in the clause within that CARES Act funding. And we need help, and we need help now, and that's why we put this petition and had the press conference on Tuesday morning.
So, well, we'll talk about some of the mechanics of this coming up in a moment, but I mean, the obvious answer to the dumb question is, why do businesses need the money? But are you finding with all of the folks that you've been networking with and hearing their specific business problems that there's a kind of need of money for a specific purpose? Tell me about that.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, cash flow is critical in any small businesses, and due to the government mandated shutdown as well as the government mandated regulations, small businesses has lost thousands and thousands of dollars in revenue and have not been able to recoup it. And they're being forced to shut down. Cash is the most important thing. We can change laws, next year, but we need help now. And the best way to get that cash into the hands is in the form of grants through that 1.25 billion, or else more businesses will shut down. The federal PPP loan was great for some businesses, but didn't help all businesses, and certainly didn't help the businesses that have a huge payroll. But they do have high rents, a lot in the hospitality industry, and that's why you're seeing a lot of restaurants, your local favorite ones, being shut down and closed for good.
Okay, so look, there's payroll, there's rent, there's utilities, there's marketing. There's 5, 6, 7 major categories of business. I guess probing that is almost not necessary. Are we targeting, guys, the businesses that did not get PPP, the payroll protection program? Tell me about that.
Well, we're not necessarily targeting whether they got PPP or not. We're just trying to help those that are just simply unable to survive. We are hearing stories that if they don't get any cash or any help over the next 30 days, they're going to have to shut down businesses that they put their blood, sweat, and tears for decades of their lives. And it's really sad. It's really horrible. And these businesses, need help. Maybe they got the PPP and it, helped them maybe for, 8 weeks. But this is an issue that's obviously started in March, and now we're in July, and there really isn't enough financial assistance for these small businesses to survive. And that's why we're doing this petition and really asking the governor and the state to allocate, only 10% of that 1.25 billion to small businesses that desperately need it.
The thing, Chris, that I think is interesting about this is that we all took kind of a breath when some of the PPP money came in and the $600 on the employment level, blah, 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 blah. And everyone just kind of went, okay, breathe. But you knew, forget a second wave of the virus itself. You knew there's going to be a second wave of economic distress when a lot of that initial programming ran out. So last thought from you, and then I'm going to talk to Lieutenant Governor about some logistics and the politics and policy here. That's the thing that the people who are signing this petition are most concerned about. And they're not screwing around. They are worried that they're 30, 60 days max away. And there's not 5 or 10. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of those businesses they're biting their nails right now, correct?
You hit it on the point, right now on the head, Dan. These businesses, it's the second wave of economic, disaster that's hitting them right now. And it's not tens, like you said, it's not even hundreds, it's thousands of small businesses that desperately need this cash, or they're just simply not going to survive and going to have to shut their doors within 30, 60 days. And we've also talked to businesses that already shut their doors and closed for good. And they're part of this as well. Even though it may be too late for them, they don't want to see their fellow small business owners, do what they had to do and shut the doors.
All right. When we come back, I'm going to talk to Lieutenant Governor about the policy in politics of this. Chris, great work. Trailblaze Marketing is the company, and the smallbusinessri.org is the website that you started here to have everybody be a community, correct?
Yep, rismallbusiness.org. Please go on there, and you can click the button on the homepage that you can join the coalition like other thousands of small businesses as well.
All right, good. Chris Parisi from Trailblaze Marketing, thank you. When we come back, Lieutenant Governor and I will talk about the nuts and bolts of this. Please stay with us on Dan Yorke State of Mind. For our final segment here on this Tuesday night with Lieutenant Governor Dan McKee. You may see this program once or twice more. I hope that this matter is resolved. I hope this program and the conversation becomes obsolete in a sense, because there's some rethinking going on with the governor. Dan, let's blaze through this as quickly as we can. The federal money has a prescription for COVID relief that includes business relief in the form of grants or loans or whatever creative means the states want to employ. The governor has retained hundreds of millions of dollars of that money. She said, she's been transparent about it. I mean, this is a disagreement. She has said, look, I am very concerned that we're not going to have a revisit of stimulus money. Our holes are going to be gaping in the state budget, and I want to use that for that reason. Tell me why that's a faulty thought process.
Well, right in the guidelines. It's right in the guidelines. Funds may not be used to fill shortfalls in government revenue to cover expenditures that would not otherwise qualify under the statute. So at the moment, you're not allowed to use it. The governor may be believing that somehow it's going to happen, but other states have found a way to appropriate dollars, which again, allowable use right in the guideline says you can use these funds to grant dollars to small businesses who have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19. And that's why a state like Louisiana, I had the lieutenant governor from Louisiana on one of our calls last week. We talked about the program that they put forward, signed by their governor, Governor Edwards, $300 million, capped it at $15,000 per any one business. Can't receive any more than $15,000. They're going to help a minimum of 20,000 businesses in the state of Louisiana that have been impacted by the COVID-19. So the two things here, one is it is an allowable use to do the grant program because some people are confused about that. And other states are doing it, and it is not an allowable use to plug a hole in a budget.
You made a point about if we don't infuse revenue into these businesses across the board and across the state, we may not have a state budget to plug, in a sense that if the short, midterm, and certainly long-term revenues that these businesses provide to the state aren't going to be there long-term, there's only just so much stimulus that you can reach for. In other words, it's a pay me now or pay me later situation, and you see a desperation here.
It clearly is. And if you just go to the petition and look at some of the statements that are being made by the businesses who are signing on, you can see and you can read that desperation. You don't even have to read between the lines. They put it blank right in your face. This is a critical time. These funds are just another avenue that we need to do, an aggressive package that we need to do to help our small businesses. We have not stepped up that way. This is the first step. This is the first petition. We're going to have additional petitions talking about other specific things. But you're right. If small businesses are either not creating the revenue to pay the taxes to their local communities and to the state, there's going to be huge budget problems. If those small businesses, for whatever reason, because they have such a small amount of cash available to them, choose not to pay their taxes, right? We're going to have a huge problem there. Because when you're in small business, you try to figure out how to make it to the next day. And right now, we're at a critical point with those businesses. Dan, what I'm hearing from the governor's office, well, it's just another ice cream shop. I'm not hearing those words, but it's just another ice cream shop, or it's just another hairdresser, or just another travel agent. Heck, I visited a travel agent last week that has refunded $1 million worth of deposits back to their customers and has not booked a penny of business during this whole crisis. These businesses are on the brink. I don't understand why the governor and the governor's office doesn't understand that. But they need to understand that, and that's what the reason for this petition. We're encouraging people to go and sign this petition, and then we're going to deliver that to the governor.
I only have about a minute and a half or 2 minutes here, but those who don't pay a lot of attention to government are saying, I don't understand this. This is the lieutenant governor saying these things that the governor doesn't understand, You don't run together, you're not elected together, and that's been a whole nother conversation that we ought to be having. But this is going to be a little bit of a hard lesson on a bunch of fronts, including but not limited to maybe the way we should not be running our government.
Yeah, that's for another discussion. Change the Constitution, let us run together, and we'll manage together. But on this one issue, if the governor continues to stay where she is right now, we certainly have a strong disagreement on this policy. Let's use those COVID dollars, as other states have. Millions and millions of dollars are helping small businesses get through this crisis. And yet Rhode Island right now is going to pick winners and losers, it appears, and not, do across the board type of grants that can help these businesses. Sure.
While I've got just less than a minute here, where's the federal delegation in this? Where's Senators Reid in White House, Congressman Langevin and Cicilline? They're the ones that helped to bring the money home. Why aren't they involved in this conversation, saying, Governor, use the money for what its express purpose is? I have 20 seconds.
Yeah, so I mean, we're in constant contact with our congressional delegation. Wrote them a letter about furthering the PPP and how they might be able to enhance and increase that. I think the position is the money has come to the federal governors, federal money to the state. The state has the ability through the governor's office to allocate it the way they feel it should be allocated. I think it should be allocated, and all the people in this coalition, Dan, thinks it should be allocated to help our small businesses, a piece of that, 10% under 25 million.
Well, it's also not just for what you think; it's what it's written and prescribed for.
It's right in the guidelines, and that's finally. I mean, people need to understand. We're getting some pushback. Oh, we're going to use it to plug a hole in budget. No, right in the guidelines it says no. Right in the guidelines it says you can use these dollars to provide grants to our small businesses, which is happening in dozens of states throughout the country. Rhode Island should follow their lead.
All right. I think that makes all the sense in the world, and we'll follow this. Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much for your advocacy. When we come back, a final word here on the Dan Yorke State of Mind. Stay with us. That old commercial, Fram oil filter, pay me now or pay me later. Truth is, if you don't pay some small businesses now to stay afloat, they're not going to be around to pay us all later. You have a great evening. We'll talk to you tomorrow night on My State of Mind and on the radio on WPRO in the afternoon. Take care.